This week, 261 new stalls were installed throughout the United States and Canada, bringing the total stall count to 62,867. And there was a discrepancy last time of about 600 stalls, and I couldn't let it lie. I finally dug up exactly where that's coming from, and I'll get to that in a second. BP Pulse added 2 stations. I should note that I've taken Circle K off because they just haven't done anything in the past 6 months. And I added Flow because they're becoming very active now. Flow added 11 stations in the past week. These are their current totals. Pilot Flying J added 7, which is a pretty good uptick for them for this time of year. Tesla added 1. I'll get to that in a second. Electrify America added 2. ChargePoint added 18. EVgo added 1. EVconnect added 3, but their station count and stall counts both went down. Rivian Adventure Network added none, but there's definitely some funny business going on here, which I'll show what's going on. And Francis added 1. Let's get into the data. Okay, first, my Type A wouldn't let this matter go, and I finally found a SQL query where I compared every station in the database where there was a difference in the number of DC fast charger totals. And what it turns out is there's 456 rows that are blank where the number is different. And when you do a total on those 2 columns, over here the 673 is last or 2 weeks ago file, and the 1342 is last week's file. So the big spike in DC fast chargers last week that wasn't able to be accounted was because Blink for some reason went into the database and adjusted a bunch of the numbers, and it threw the count off. So that's where that came from. Here's BP Pulse. They added 2 stations. One is a Thornton's in Florida, which is south of Tampa. Looks like this. Looks really pretty. 6 stalls. Normally the Thorntons only get 4 stalls, but this one got 6 stalls. And a 12-stall Travel Centers of America in London, Ohio. And if everyone remembers their history, London, Ohio is where the first NEVI station in the country opened at a Pilot Flying J. And that's actually immediately across the interstate from this location. So now there's the Pilot Flying J on the other side of the interstate with the canopy 4 stalls, and then this station on the other side of the interstate that has 12 stalls split between J3400 and CCS1. Here's Flow. As you can see, their stall count is typically pretty low, very similar to ChargePoint, but occasionally they have bigger stations. Right now, I looked up some of these, and they're just basically 1 unit chargers in municipal areas is typically where you see them in some car dealerships. So it's a pretty similar approach to what ChargePoint does, except in Canada instead of the United States. And here's Pilot Flying J. I did an update for them, which ends right here at Waynesville. These next 2, Aurora and Prosperity, South Carolina, are net new as of that update. So they're in a pretty significant spin-up of opening new stations. Prosperity, South Carolina is now the second one in the state of South Carolina, which was a big black hole for a while, but it's very quickly getting reversed. They're solving that problem pretty quick. So Prosperity is now open, and also Aurora, Oregon, near Portland. And here's the Tesla. Last time we had a Tesla entry into the database, it was also in Canada. I looked this one up. It's actually not on PlugShare yet, so I don't have any pictures of it yet. So I think what's going on with Tesla is in the United States, they upload via a manual file process that is not being tended to. But in Canada, for some reason, maybe the Supercharger team uses an API to update the Alternative Fuels Data Center database, is all I could think, because this is the second time in a month that we have a Tesla entry, but it's a single entry, and it's just in Canada. So take that for what it is. I'm not really sure exactly how to interpret that, but that's how I'm interpreting it, that the Canadian Supercharger team is updating via API, and the stateside Supercharger team is updating via CSV, which is not getting tended to by the staff at the Alternative Fuels Data Center. Here's Electrify America. They opened 2 stations, one in Napa, California, a place that I have visited, very nice area of the country. They have a Costco, which Electrify America is partnering with, and if you look, it's 10 stalls. That's a pretty big station, and right here you only have 8 stalls, so there must be an additional pair of dispensers that are not pictured in this image, and 6 stalls in Indianapolis at a Simon Mall. Here's ChargePoint. I tried to get a picture of this one in Mississippi because Mississippi tends to be a bit of a charging desert, but it's not on PlugShare yet, so I wasn't able to get see any pictures. But I was able to get a picture of this one here in Kingston, Ontario, the Petro-Canada, which is kind of an interesting story. I'll get to that in just a second. And pausing here for anyone who wants to assess the new ChargePoint stations this week. So this is what the Petro-Canada in Kingston, Ontario looks like. And as you can see, there's ChargePoint dispensers. But these used to be BTC power chargers. But those look to be problematic. And they were recently replaced with ChargePoint Express Plus. You can see the power bricks over here. And so this was a rip and replace for new hardware. EVgo opened 1, Canyon Creek Plaza in San Jose, California. There were no pictures yet. It just showed up into PlugShare from EVgo's processing, but no pictures yet. 6 stalls. EV Connect added 3 stations in this Crystal River Visitor Center man cave. Boy, that really struck a chord. I was trying to figure out what the heck that is. And it looks like it's an old station that got replaced, but there's no new pictures on what it looks like now. And this one here, there were no entries in PlugShare for it. Okay, now let's talk about Rivian. Last week, we had 2 stations. We had 3 stations total. 1 was net new, and 2 were existing stations that looked to be newly opened to non-Rivians. And a couple of viewers chimed in after that video saying, yes, they confirmed by looking at the Rivian app. I don't have the Rivian app on my phone. And they said they are now open to non-Rivians. So it looks like what they're doing is going through, and it's a new open date. And I don't know if they're ripping out the hardware and they're putting in new hardware, but we have 4 stations that are net new in the database for Rivian with new open dates, but they're existing stations. So it looks like Rivian is going through their inventory of stations and doing some kind of processing in order to open them up to non-Rivians. That's what this looks like. Lastly, Francis. 8 stalls, which is a pretty big station for them in Plainview, Texas. It says Ocho 80, which I think is a Mexican restaurant, but in PlugShare is listed as an Allsup convenience store. Thanks for watching.